This is a bit different, isn't it? Normally, I'm used to streaming, but I want to try and add some YouTube content for you guys when I'm not streaming because of either not feeling up for streaming, something comes up, or just, I want to record some YouTube content because it's fun. I've recorded YouTube stuff before and I've enjoyed it. So, with this, I want to bring, as you can tell by the mat that I have, I am interested in Pokemon TCG. As the time of recording this being April 3rd, the European International Championships is this weekend. As such, I'm not attending, unfortunately, but if I was attending, this is what I would be bringing. Chenpao. Chenpao is one of the better decks in the current TCG format because it was one of the decks that lost the fewest cards from rotation. And it just gained better matchups. It lost some of its harder counters in Avery and Path of the Peak, and it just became an overall more consistent deck, despite the fact that the inconsistency is still there, unfortunately. With that, let's get things started. We have two copies of Chenpao EX. Chenpao EX is surprisingly not one of your better starters. Do you want to start it in most matchups? Yes. Do you want to start it in every matchup? No. Shivery Chill is the ability. Search your deck. If this Pokemon is active, search your deck for 2 water energy and put them into your hand. Tailblade does 60 damage for 2 water energy, and you discard any number of water energy from your Pokemon in play. You deal 60 damage for each energy you discard. This can ramp up really quick. It's one of your main attackers. I say one of because there are other attackers in the deck that you do want to use, um, but it is one of the best attackers in the game because of the effectively unlimited damage cap. But with an unlimited damage cap, you need a way to get the water energies into play to be able to use said damage cap because it comes from play, not from hand. And with that, we need a we need 3 Frigibacks. I am still opting to play 2 60 HP Frigibacks and 1 70 HP. The meta is still developing. Lost Box is still a deck. So I want to still respect it and keep the 70 HP Frigibacks. I'm playing the collect one because there have been some times where I get into the active. I've got nothing else to do, so may as well draw a card. The other one is less useful. It's still useful, but it's less useful because you don't. Gardevoir is not as relevant as it was, so you can't really take advantage of that 10 poke to knock out damaged Gardevoirs. Uh, but that's besides the point. It still has uses. I just prefer collect. And here is the main acceleration. 2 copies of Baxcalibur. Super cold. As often as you like, you may attach a basic water energy from your hand to one of your Pokemon. This is how you ramp up Chenpao. You may notice I'm not playing Arctibax. We'll get to that. But for those who play TCG, you know where this is going already. We have a lot of cards that discard cards from our hand. We have Ultra Ball, Superior Energy Retrieval, Lost Vacuum. Our hands are going to be thin very, very quickly. With that, we have 2 BDIF and 2 copies of a barrel. Also, get used to seeing a lot of max rarity stuff because I like this deck a lot. BDIF has Carefree Countenance, which, when it's on the bench, it is immune to damage from your opponent's Pokemon. So you can't attack it with stuff like Screamtail, with stuff like Greninja. Yeah, I think that's basically it. Because Urshifu rotated. Oh, and also Kyogre. But um, there's not much that Bidoof prevents, but it is still good to have so your opponent can't snipe you down with Greninja in Mirror Match. Speaking of Mirror, Radiant Greninja, one of the best draw cards in the game, one of the best attackers for this deck. Conceal cards, discard energy, draw 2 cards. Moonlight Shuriken, 2 water, 1 colorless, 90 to 2 of your opponent's Pokemon. One of the best attacks in the game, and this is one of the best abusers of the attack. We also have 2 more attackers. 1 copy of Crown Zenith Kyogre, and 1 copy of Iron Hands EX. Kyogre can be used for a lot of different things. Mew EX, Squawkabilly EX, Lumineon V. In stall, it's a good against stall. It's a good option because you're not discarding your energy; you're putting them back to hand. So it's a good alternate attacker into that. And also in mirror, you can dynamic wave. What I've been thinking about for mirror is gust up a barrel to stall it, knock out their Baxcalibur on bench. It's really easy to put yourself back into the game unless they have two backs set up, but most lists are playing 3-2. How often is that happening? As for Iron Hands, it's just a good way to keep your prize trade going two prize, two prize, two prize, because amp you very much means you take two prizes on a single prize. That's it for Pokemon. It is very, very small. So for item cards, this is one of the better cards that Tenpao gained from Temporal Forces. 4 copies of Buddy Buddy Poffin. Buddy Buddy Poffin says search your deck for 2 basics with 70 HP or less and put them onto your bench. For those who played during pre-rotation format, you may remember this card, Battle VIP Pass. This is effectively a nerfed but better Battle VIP Pass because yes, you can't search for any 2 basics like Battle VIP Pass, but you can play this after your first turn, which is the biggest upgrade that this deck needed because having 4 dead Battle VIP Pass I can account from games is so often it's ridiculous. More Pokemon search. We've got 4 copies of Ultra Ball. Discard 2 cards from your hand and search your deck for a Pokemon. It searches any of your Pokemon. And like I said, you have Ultra Ball, you have Superior Energy Retrieval, you're searching for Barrel most of the time to discard and fill your hand back up. I am going to move these because I'm running out of space. But Ultra Ball is one of the best, if not the best, ball search card in the game, with the other being Nest Ball. Speaking of Nest Ball, 4 copies. Search your deck for a basic Pokemon and put it right to your bench. You have, aside from Barrel, aside from Baxcalibur, your entire deck is basic Pokemon. You have so many outs with this card, it's ridiculous. Why would you not play 4 copies? And you do it for free. More items. Chien-Pao discards energy to attack. And we want to keep ramping up that damage no matter what. So, 4 copies of Superior Energy Retrieval. Discard 2 cards, put 4 basic energy from your discard into your hand. That is effectively 240 damage for the cost of discarding 2 other cards. It's one of the best recovery cards that ever existed for Rain Dance decks, and it's so nice to see it finally back after 10 years since Black and White, 10 plus. As I said before, we play Frigibax, we play Baxcalibur, but no Arctibax. That's because we play 3 copies of Rare Candy. If you have a basic in play and you have a stage 2 in your hand that evolves from that Pokemon, you just skip the stage 1. It's one of the best, it's the only way that stage 2s exist unless you have a broken stage 1 like Charmeleon, like Curlia. Stage 2 decks just cannot function without Rare Candy. We have more recovery cards. We don't just have 4 Superior Energy Retrieval. We have 2 Super Rod as well. Shuffle 3 in any combination of Pokemon and basic energy from your discard into your deck. So this means if your Baxcalibur gets knocked out, this is also why we play 2 Baxcalibur, because you recover 1 and you just search it out and Rare Candy it right away. Same with Chien-Pao, you only play 2 because you can just Super Rod. You have so many ways to search it out. There's another search out that I have not brought up that works really well for just recycling Chien-Paos and Baxcaliburs. More items. Chien-Pao is not the only way to search out energy. We have 2 copies of Earthen Vessel. Discard a card, search for 2 basics. Search for a 2 basic energy. It makes it so that basically for the cost of 1 card, if you have a Chien-Pao active, you swing 240. 240 is like one of the best numbers to hit because it knocks out every basic EX effectively, unless they have a health buff. But we have an answer for that, and it does come at the cost of discarding another card. In this case, lost zoning a card, 1 copy of Lost Vacuum. There's so many health buffing tools, and there's also Heavy Baton and Just also rescue board that just came out in Temporal Forces. Lost Vacuum is really good in this current format. I'm surprised not that many Chenpao decks are running it when they have an easy way to search it out, which is coming up soon. There's a lot of valuable basic Pokemon in our deck. Iron Hands, Beedoops to set up a barrels, Chenpao, Frigiback so we can get 2 out so we don't just instantly lose. Greninja, how do we find them guaranteed? Well, we have 1 copy of Hisuian Heavy Ball. Search your prizes for a basic Pokemon and switch Heavy Ball with that basic Pokemon. It is one of the best search cards in the game because A, you get to check your prizes, and B, you get a basic Pokemon if something is there. There have been so many times where I have prayed to Arceus to just say, I have a Heavy Ball in my hand. Please let Radiant Greninja be prized so I can just get it for free. One of the combos that Chenpao used to play pre-rotation is Cross Switcher and Canceling Cologne. Cross Switcher has unfortunately rotated out with the release of Temporal Forces, but there is something to replace it. We play Canceling Cologne and Prime Catcher. Canceling Cologne says during your turn, your opponent's active has no abilities. With Prime Catcher, you switch in one of your opponent's bench Pokemon to the active. If you do switch one of your active with one of your switch your active with one of your benched. You Prime Catcher up a Manaphy, and then you Canceling Cologne said Manaphy attached to Greninja, and suddenly you are hitting 90 to 2 of your opponent's bench Pokemon when you really shouldn't because they have bench protection. Canceling Cologne Prime Catcher, despite the fact that it's less cards than Cross Switcher Cologne, is still pretty tough to put together because it's 2 one-ofs. You have to find them at the perfect time, which is not too bad because we have 4 copies of Irida. Irida says search your deck for a water Pokemon and an item card, reveal them and put them into your hand. Most of the time, though, you're searching Rare Candy Baxcalibur. It's not the worst, but it's one of the best cards in the game, honestly, because just searching for any item, we have so many items here, it's ridiculous. Searching for any one item is really good. You can search for a Chenpao in a vessel, and there's 240 right there. You can see a theme. It's easy to hit 240 damage for little to no cost. Um, Another supporter, we have 4 Irida, but sometimes you'd be surprised 4 Irida is not always enough. This new card from Temporal Forces is one of the best cards in the set. It's so good. Cryptomaniac's Deciphering. Yes, I know the card says Cyphermaniac's Codebreaking, but I still prefer the translated name. I'm sorry. It's just my preference. Cryptomaniac's Deciphering says search your deck for 2 cards, shuffle your deck, and then you put those 2 cards on top of your deck in any order. Keep in mind what draw card we're playing. Radiant Greninja, discarded energy, draw 2. It's easy to just draw right into the 2 cards that you put up. You also have, like I said, Barrel. You have so many discard cards with Superior Energy Retrieval, Ultra Ball, Earthen Vessel, Lost Vacuum. Your hand can get down to 2 or less, and it's easy to just go Cryptomaniac, search for 2 cards you need, and either Conceal cards or Industrious Incisors, and you just get those 2 cards right away. There's also another card in the deck that will help us draw into cards that we stack with Cryptomaniac, but that will be in a second because we have 2 other supporters. We have 1 copy of Boss, 1 copy of Boss's Orders, and 1 copy of Iono. Boss's Orders reads switch your opponent's bench Pokemon with their active, so half a Prime Catcher, but this is on a supporter, so it's yes, you're using your supporter for the turn, but unfortunately, you can't simply rely on Prime Catcher. You do need another Gusting Out, and I feel like Boss is the better option compared to Counter Catcher because it can't be discarded off of Misfortune Sisters and Airy from Stall and Control, which is a really big matchup right now. And as much as Chenpao loses or is like unfavored into stall, I am somewhat trying to mitigate it, as you can tell by the Boss's Orders, Lost Vacuum, and the Kyogre. They are meant to help versus control. They don't swing it in your favor, but it makes it so it's not just instant scoop and goes to the next round. it makes it so you do have at least a chance. Same with Iono. If you Iono your opponent from a large hand down to small, they can just fumble and not do anything. Uh, Late game as well. Iono is just a really versatile card. Late game, you can go Iono. You have a low hand, but you likely have a barrel set up, so you're basically Iono to 5. And you Iono your opponent down to 1 or 2. It's also just a really good draw card early game because if you have a dead hand, you can just Iono. You know you're not getting those dead cards, and you're drawing a fresh hand of 6. It's really good. As I said, with Cryptomaniac's Deciphering, there's a stadium that helps us draw into cards we stack with it, and that would be 2 copies of Pokestop. If we stack 2 items on top of the deck, Pokestop reads 1 string each player's turn. That player may discard 3 cards from the top of their deck. If you reveal any items, they go to your hand. So with Cryptomaniac, you can stack any 2 items and Pokestop into them, and potentially even get a 3rd card that you never intended. There have been a decent amount of times where I have had an Irida in my hand and I just wish that it was a Cryptomaniac instead because I need 2 items or an item and a non-water Pokemon, and having 2 copies of Cryptomaniac alongside Pokestop is so good for this deck. It's ridiculous. This deck is really fun to play, but one argument you will see is the fact that it is pretty sequence heavy, and with the trainer cards, you can see why that is, especially with cards like Irida and Cryptomaniac. That's it for the trainers, and for the energy count, we have 2, 4, 6, 8 water energy. Yes, I've got the holographic water from 151. I don't have gold because it would be too expensive. 8 seems fine. You can play 9. I've found that 8 is alright. The only issue is there has been a time where I unfortunately prized 3 water energy, and you just can't win against Charizard with that because you need 6 to take a knockout. It sucks, but prizing is unfortunately the main mechanic of the game, and it's something that we just have to deal with. And we have one more energy card, and that would be the One of Lightning that we need to pay for Ampy very much on Iron Hands. I have seen a friend suggest removing Iron Hands and Lightning Energy, and they instead play a Silene Palpad to help with control. I am tempted to try that, but I want to stick with what I know so far, and this is currently the 60 that I've got because it's what I'm used to. There are other tech inclusions that you can include to this deck as well. There is Spiritomb, which lets you shut off V Pokemon abilities. So against Charizard, you shut off their Rotom V. You're going to sense a theme with this Spiritomb. Spiritomb shuts off Pokemon V abilities. Basic. Is it basic? No. Well, okay. Spiritomb. Basic Pokemon V in play. Both yours and your opponents have no abilities. You play no Pokemon V, so it doesn't affect you in the slightest. But against decks like Charizard, against decks like Stolen Control, shutting off Rotom against them is massive. This is one of the biggest contention. This is one of the biggest cards that I've been considering in the deck just because it helps out against those 2 matches. There's also Manaphy, which could be decent. As I said, Chanpao is one of the better decks currently in format, so playing a copy of Manaphy to help out against Mirror and force them to use their Canceling Cologne Prime Catcher early can help. Unfortunately, I just don't really see the space. I would much prefer Spiritomb to Manaphy if I was to include one of them. There is also Iron Bundle, which says 1 string return if this Pokemon is on the bench. You can just discard it, and your opponent switches their active with something else. It's a Pseudogust, and with cards like Fluttermane running around, which just have ability lock on the active, it's decent. It's recyclable with Super Rod. You can get it. You can search it right out with Irida. I see the space for it. I just don't. I just don't like Iron Bundle in the deck. I'm gonna be honest. But that would be it for the Chenpao deck. It's fun to play, difficult to. It's not difficult to pick up, but it is difficult to learn properly. So if you're willing to put the time in, I would definitely suggest picking this deck up. Hopefully I can get more, hopefully I can do more deck profiles because these are fun to do and it shows just what I like to do in spare time. I've enjoyed playing TCG. I've been playing it for 5 years, so sharing the decks that I enjoy playing is something that I am really interested in. But with that, thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I will see you again at another time. Thank you.